Hi everybody, it's Jenn from McCreath. It's Friday night, August 26th. And the US Open main draw is out, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. I want to talk about an interesting tweet put out by infamous tennis journalist and Twitter personality Ben Rothenberg. No, not the football player that played for Pittsburgh. Not Roethlisberger, but Rothenberg, took note of and took exception to the fact that the 2020 US Open champion will be playing the recent Canadian Open champion in the first round, which is really cool to see two big-time tennis players in the first round going at it, but they're not on center court. They're not even on the number 2 court or the 3 court. They're way out on court number 17. So yeah, an interesting observation. This led to an interesting discussion because over the years, every now and then, certain tennis players complain about not being put on the big show courts and feeling that they deserve to be there. And ultimately, it's interesting because I've physically gone to tennis tournaments for the past 30 years. Well, I haven't been for 15 years, but I've been to a lot of big tennis tournaments, and I can relate to one, the interest and excitement of the top stars and trying to get a seat on the top courts, versus sometimes you're going to see a really good match on paper that might not appeal to the casual tennis fans or the TV stations. And that's what you got to say. Dominic Thiem and Pablo Carreño Busta, I don't think that's going to draw a lot of casual fans to say, God, I want to see that match. It's not going to get you to go all the way out to Flushing Meadows and spend $100 on a ticket. Or maybe it's a casual tennis fan sitting somewhere in a living room halfway around the world. What are they going to want to watch if they turn their TV on Monday? And that got me thinking, okay, well what... And that's what... It's an interesting concept because everyone's writing on this thread. Got to give you credit, Ben. You've got people talking about this. That's kind of what Twitter's all about. Tennis tournaments tend to favor, one, what the TV stations, if there's television coverage. Now that we're going into a web world, so that what's on TV isn't so much as important because you can always find a web stream. But I think it still matters for the majors because you got big name TV companies broadcasting this stuff, and especially in the United States, I know they've got a split schedule. That the Tennis Channel itself is broadcasting in the US as well as ESPN, and we're guilty of it up here in Canada. TSN will follow the Canadians and ignore whatever's going on. If there's a Canadian playing on court 17, they'll show that match, and you'll miss what's going on center court. So we got center court, American versus qualifier, American versus seed, unseeded American versus an unseeded, I don't even know what country that is. We got a 23rd seed against a unseeded Australian. Sounds pretty boring, right? Well, no, not necessarily. It's Medvedev, one in the world, former champion. You got Serena Williams in there, Nick Kyrgios, Wimbledon finalist, Corey Goff, young American sensation. I get that that's what the people want on TV. And sure, people want to see Serena Williams. She's not nearly as high in the rankings as she has been in the past, but it's Serena Williams, and it's probably her last match. She's announced her retirement. more people would probably pay money to go watch Serena's last match than you would Pablo Carreño Busta, so I get that. I mean, if money was no object and I was traveling the world going to every Grand Slam tournament, and if I was there, do I want a $500 seat up in the nosebleeds to see Serena against Danka Kovanic? Probably not. I'll take the $20 grounds pass and I'll walk over to court 17 and get a front row seat for that match. Louis Armstrong Stadium, seat Z pass, number 4 seed against qualifiers. They don't even know who the qualifiers are. They're just simply saying you're the top seed, you're a draw. Last year's semi-finalist, Leylah Fernandez, is on Armstrong, Canadian, 14th seed. Usually you don't see 14 seeds on the big courts, unless, of course, they are like a runner-up or defending champ. 3, Zachary is on the grandstand. Former champ Andreescu is on the grandstand. Taylor Fritz, is he the number 1 American now these days? 10th seed. He won in, was it Indian Wells? Number 6, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Canadian. Look at that. I like how they put the 2 Canadians on the same court. So TSN, you know where they're going to be glued on Monday. But definitely, well, that's the other thing. You get multiple feeds now. TSN, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN Plus, TSN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On this court, we'll show this. On this channel, we'll show these matches. On that channel, then somehow you end up getting the same match on 5 different channels, and everyone gets pissed off. But let's look at court 17, shall we? Who won Cincinnati last week? Caroline Garcia. She's there. Court 17. Matteo Berrettini. We just saw him in a Wimbledon final. Was it last year? The aforementioned Thiem Busta match. In the ladies' world number 2, Annette Contaviet in her opening match. So, I mean, you can't really... You could conceivably make a case to put any of them on one of the major courts, but then who do you take off? Okay, the argument here is for Thiem and Busta to be on a higher court, so who do you take? Who do you kick off grandstand? Well, let's see here. Do you kick Bianca Andreescu and Harmony Tan out of there? Nah, probably a toss-up. I mean, Andreescu won the title as well. Taylor Fritz, maybe you kick him out. Fritz against qualifier. Felix Auger-Aliassime against qualifier. I can see Thiem and Busta being worthy of a spot on the grandstand court. How about that Louis Armstrong court? Because you have to have separate, more expensive tickets to sit in Louis Armstrong court and Arthur Ashe court. Otherwise, I believe a grounds pass, you can go sit anywhere you want. Grandstand, you might need a ticket to. Would you boot Tsitsipas' 4th seed? He needs to be on one of the top 2 courts. You're not gonna bump him for Thiem and Busta. Leylah Fernandez against Océane Doidin. I don't have a problem leaving them on Armstrong. What else is on Armstrong? That's the night session. Keys Yastremska on Armstrong. Yeah, Keys. American, top 20. Halep versus qualifier. Halep just won Toronto. I think the issue here is, yeah, Thiem won a major, but he's only won 1. And it's been a while. He's been injured. He's unseated. Busta, he's more of a journeyman. Yeah, he may have fluked off one big title recently, but Andy Murray, he's still got brand name. Unseeded. He's actually playing a seed, Francisco Cerundolo, on Louis Armstrong. If you were to make a case, I would say, who do you kick off that court? Maybe Keys and Yastremska. You'd swap them out. What about Arthur Ashe? Corey Goff versus qualifier? I get it. Corey's a young, up-and-coming American star. She's kind of sputtered lately. Stuck. She hasn't been able to crack that top 10. You could argue that the team match is more important than that one. Medvedev's won in the world, and he's defending champ. I don't care who he plays. He kind of deserves a show card. Say what you want about Serena, but that's the draw. You're not going to put Serena on anything other than Arthur Ashe Stadium. Kokkinakis and Kyrgios, that's a really intriguing men's matchup. Kyrgios, you either love him or you hate him. You know he's going to draw attention. Not just from again, this isn't about the casual tennis fans. If you're a casual tennis fan and you really want to see these other courts, then that's what you'll do. If you're casual, you're probably just going to sit at home and watch on TV. We could go the other way. Do we have... Well, I don't think they've announced. Oh, yeah, Court 5. Three-time major champ Stan Wawrinka is opening up his campaign on Court 5. Ons Jabeur, number 5 in the world for the ladies. She's out there too. French Open champ from last year, Barbora Krejcikova, is on Court 10 to open her U.S. Open campaign. Any more big seeds here? Court 13 has some lower seeds. Court 4. These are the courts where you have like one row of bench and then the rest is standing room. I mean, the depth in this sport has really grown. I could go to Court 4 and sit and watch this whole schedule, and I know all the players, and I'm sure they'd all be very intriguing matches. Korda versus qualifier. Haddad Maia seeded against Konya, coming back from injury. Molcan, Thiago Monteiro. A lot of challengers there. I watched a lot of challengers. Podoroska, and all. Isn't she a mom? Had a deep run there a couple years ago. Shmedlova. Ooh. Bonzi and Humbert, two French guys going at it on Court 6. How about Tim van Rijsselman? What a win he had earlier this year, but that was a Dutch tournament on grass. Camila Giorgi, she's out on Court 6. Court 7. Muchova, Tomljanovic. Krajinovic versus Diminar. Ooh, one of my favorites, Donna Vekic. She's way out on Court 8. Kudermetova, the seed. I mean, that's a match. I'd love... Oh, Canadian, Rebecca Marino. She's on Court 9, third up against Maggie Freck. TSN will be... If they don't have a camera out there, they'll fly a drone in there so we can watch some of that match. Trevisan, French Open semi-finalist. She's down at the bottom here, Court 11. So, I mean... Yeah, it's an interesting observation. Overall, I'm going to take your point there, Ben, but I'm not going to criticize what they've done with the U.S. Open, because I understand the business side of things. People are spending the big bucks to go to Arthur Ashe Stadium. They don't even know who they're going to get to see, but they're expecting to see the top stars, whether that means top ranked players or top legends. And if you were to put Serena Williams on a different court, people would be really pissed off. So I think they got it right here. I mean, you could argue that Thiem versus Busta could move up one or two courts, but I mean, I really wouldn't. I mean, Medvedev, Kozlov. That's the other thing. Djokovic is not here. Federer is not here. Nadal doesn't play till Tuesday. Medvedev has won a major. So has Thiem. So it's one or the other. Kozlov, the American, being the opponent for Medvedev, did that play a role in deciding which match went on the center court? Maybe so. And I joked on Twitter, it'd be neat to see what the American commentators have to say about Kozlov if they try to hype him up as this hot superstar that has a chance. To be honest, I hope that there is some television coverage of that Court 17 match. Busta versus Thiem. I'd love to see it. I'm intrigued by it. And very, very happy. I've been a fan of Busta for a long time. He's come so close so many times, and he always seems to make it to the quarterfinals, and then he loses to someone big. So when he won that Canadian Open, I was just jumping up and down here in my living room. Dominic Thiem has been out with injury. The comeback's on the go, but it's been fairly slow. Tough opening draw. Hard to predict. Busta tanked and went out to in Cincinnati the next week. Thiem has won a few matches here, but he hasn't been able to string a bunch together. No titles, no finals, no semifinals. I'd be curious to know what the bookies have to say about that match. It would be major news if a former champ from just a couple years ago was knocked out in the first round. Well, that could also happen. Bianca Andreescu could be knocked out in the first round to Harmony Tan. I mean, we just don't know. I think it's pretty straightforward. Medvedev will blow out Kozlov. Goff will destroy whoever the qualifier is. Serena's literally a wild card. We saw her embarrassed off the courts last week in Cincinnati by Raducanu, but this is not Raducanu, this is Danka Kovanic. So Serena might actually have a chance to win this match. Kyrgios Kokkinakis, I want to watch that. That's going to be amazingly interesting and fun. They're good buddies and they're doubles partners and they're friends, but Kyrgios is Kyrgios. You just never know what the guy's going to do on a tennis court. You know at some point he's going to lose his temper, so there's going to be a racket that gets smashed or some profanity, something intriguing. Sometimes the fans in New York, I mean the American tennis fans, sometimes get intoxicated, and we've had Kyrgios engaging in commentary conversations with these fans, so that's just must-see TV. And I mean, I'd love to sit down and watch every single match. There's just so many of them, though. I noticed the Australian Open put 7-minute highlight packages for every single match on their YouTube page. I think the US Open should do that. 3-minute highlight packages are nice, but you really need to see a little more to get a sense of how the match goes. So, 7-minute packages, please. Yeah, what do you think? Who should be on what court? And we'll take a look at Tuesday. First round's always the most interesting because you got so many different players. You can't put them all on the top court. Should Thiem and Busta be? Did they get snubbed? Maybe. Do they care? If you go and ask them, they'd say, "I don't care. I'm just happy to be here. I'm trying to try to win the match." There's 8 people in the stands, or 800, or 8,000, and but yeah, the players aren't complaining. This is just a journalist who likes to stir the pot and does a good job at it, Ben. That's why, I mean, people pay attention to your threads because you never know you're like the Kyrgios of the media. You never know what's going to happen. So I'll give you that. Good conversation, and looking forward to seeing some of the tennis, no matter which court it is on. And thank you for watching, everyone.